Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Wednesday meditation gathering. I'm so glad you're all here to share this time together. This week, we have Lia Steinson, who will lead us in meditation, and then we have 20 minutes of silence. After that, we'll open it up for sharing, and we end at approximately 10:45. Over to you, Lia.
Thank you, Dan. Lovely to be back with you all again. I think I know just about everybody, and if I don't, I didn't before, I do now, and lovely to see you. It's great to be here. I'd like to start with a prayer. So if you would like to close your eyes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say each line of the prayer and leave a space so that you can say it in your mind and heart as well. And then we feel we're really deeply connected through the prayer. So if you close your eyes, take a couple of deep breaths. Feel yourself really present here in this moment. Dear God, thank you for this day, its beauty and its light. Thank you for my chance to begin again. Free me from the limitations of yesterday. Today, may I be reborn. May I be more fully a reflection of your radiance. Give me strength and compassion, courage and wisdom. Show me the light in myself and others. May I see the goodness that is available everywhere. Please lead me into gentle pastures and give me deep peace that I might serve you most deeply. Amen. Just feel that resonance a moment and gently open your eyes when you're ready. Thank you. It's lovely to share in a prayer like that, isn't it? What I'm going to talk about a little bit today before the meditation is yesterday's lesson. I was so inspired by it. God is the love in which I forgive. And somehow that it was easy to stay with that one. I'm sure you find the same. Sometimes you just can't seem to keep the lesson in your mind. But yesterday that filled my being all day, really. And then I was reading what Alan Watson said in his workbook companion that was really helpful. And I began to feel more deeply connected with the teachings here about, well, two things really struck me. One is the knowledge that what I'm really doing is forgiving myself and loving myself, and that radiates back out into the world. And if I don't forgive myself and then allow that love, God's love, to flow into me, then I'm not really going to be very good at forgiving anybody else or loving anybody else. And there's a couple of things I just wanted to read you that I thought were, really beautiful here. God does not forgive because he has never condemned, and there must be condemnation before forgiveness is necessary. Forgiveness is the great need of this world, but that is because it is a world of illusions. Those who forgive are thus releasing themselves from illusions, while those who withhold forgiveness are binding themselves to them. And this line really resonates for me. As you condemn only yourself, so do you forgive only yourself. That feels really powerful to me. We have to remember that everything is projected out from ourselves. So the illusion of the world, our personal illusion, because we don't all have the same illusion, is projected out from our minds. And we're taught the whole of the course is about healing our minds. So I feel very strongly that we need to focus on forgiving ourselves and loving ourselves. It doesn't really matter which way around we do it, although I think the most powerful is to start with the forgiving of ourselves, because that opens us up. It makes a space in which we can experience God's love. And when we love ourselves, clearly we're not loving our ego or our body or our little selves. When we love ourselves, we're loving with God's love, experiencing God's love. That's such a beautiful place, isn't it? So I'm going to read a little bit too from Alan Watson. That will help as well. And he repeats this: all condemnation is self-condemnation. The guilt we see in others is our own reflecting back at us. And as we release others from our condemnation, we are released. Lifting the chains of judgment from everyone that I know puts me in a position to forgive myself. It brings a warm feeling inside when I can say, God is the love in which I forgive myself. So it's another way, isn't it, of looking at how we can't just try and use our own strength. So if we're trying to love ourselves from our little selves, it's not really going to work. So it's being deeply in touch with God's love. Then we can love ourselves as God loves us, because we're loving with his love. We're forgiving through his love. And there's one extra line I'm going to say from the lesson from yesterday. I'm going to find it in a moment. Yes, God is the love with which I love myself. So I hope you do, find that really helpful, because when we try to love ourselves, often we're trying to love ourselves from a smaller place. Yes? And if we haven't got that huge fountain source of love within us, the love won't be very big, will it? Or we'll get involved in loving our bodies or bits of ourselves. And the whole point of this is to love with God's love, forgive with God's love, be so deeply involved in the love of God that it's easy to love ourselves, it's easy to forgive ourselves, and that forgiveness extends out into the world. So that felt for me yesterday. Have you ever found that when you read a lesson again, that you might have done it 15 times, but it's always new? The number of times I think, definitely didn't say that before. No. But of course it did. But different things speak to us, don't they? I've done this lesson loads of times. Lots of these things, they weren't there before. But so lovely. I'm just going to say that one again because I love it so much. God is the love with which I love myself. And we don't always remember about this loving ourselves, do we? How fundamental it is. So that when we extend love into the world, when we extend light and forgiveness into the world, it comes with a great power and strength and wonder of God's love. So it's completely different, isn't it? It's not our own little love. It's a big love. And another aspect I just wanted to touch on as well is we need to realize, I think, that we only need to forgive because we condemned. We don't always remember that, do we? We think that when people do things that we get upset about, or things in the world happen that we might think are wrong, we think we have to forgive them. And we do if we judge them. And that will take some contemplating, I think, for all of us. If you never condemn, if you never judge, you never criticize, you would not need to forgive. And we spend such a lot of time, don't we, if we don't watch it, condemning and judging and then forgiving. And I think the amount of energy that consumes in our minds. So for me, an aspect of healing our minds is really to learn not to judge or condemn anything in the first place. And I love that lesson. Today, I will judge nothing that occurs. Now, if we took that lesson into our everyday lives with constancy, yeah, we'd be there, wouldn't we? We'd be saved and home. So I just, as part of this, encourage all of us to think a bit more about how do I actually get to a place? It's a place of non-reaction, isn't it? Because what happens, we could see as neutral. It's just stuff that's happening in my illusion. If I don't judge it, I stay peaceful. If I judge it, then I've got to go through all the palaver of forgiving it. So if I don't judge, I'm consistently resting, grounded in the place of God's love. So for our meditation today, I'd like us to use that lesson, and the teaching in it is so helpful of what to do. So God is the love in which I forgive. And what I suggest we do is, once we begin, is that we use those words and we say who we need to forgive. And there's a bit in it about, there's a good guide who you need to forgive. It's the people you don't like very much. So if you have a little bit of not liking or irritation or not too thrilled to see that person, and all of us have a bit of that, don't we? Because we're mostly not entirely enlightened yet. Those are the people. So you could just begin by saying, God is the love in which I forgive you, and say the name. Just feel you just clear that. And then forgive things of the world. That's often much harder, isn't it? There seems to be so much stuff going on in the world that people are struggling with. But, again, we need to clear away the temptation to judge the world. It's just stuff that got reflected out there. So God is the love in which I forgive war. I forgive the behavior of whatever it is that you want. So clear those away, and then come back to God is the love in which I forgive myself. And then perhaps you won't remember all of this, but something like this, yeah? Then God is the love in which I love myself. Yes, if you could just begin to settle into that. When you cleared away the forgiveness, come back to loving yourself. God is the love in which I love myself. And you might imagine yourself as a child. I'm very conscious of that because I've been doing this healing childhood trauma course, and the inner child work has been very powerful. So when you come to loving yourself, you might just remember that the child that you were is actually still there within you. So you might direct your love there too. And then towards the end, 2 or 3 minutes before the end, I'm just going to speak to you again to help us to gather that love we've created, or not created, it's not the right word, we've experienced, and send it out into the world. Okay, so when I start talking towards the end, don't wonder what's going on. I'm just closing the meditation with a few words, and then you'll get some things on my crystal bowl. Okay, so I'll talk you into it a little bit. I don't know, I don't experience that people can usually go from normal consciousness, boom, into perfect meditation. So I'll just guide you with a little bit of breathing and becoming present. And I'll leave you in your silence to work with those beautiful words. So if you'd like to close your eyes now. Focus on your breathing for a moment or two. Such a lovely thing, isn't it, to be aware of the flow of breath in and out. You might feel that as you breathe out, you're letting go of ordinary thinking. And as you breathe in, follow the breath down. It goes down into your heart center. Like you're connecting with the love of your heart, with God's love. There is no love but God. And feel the warmth and expansiveness of your heart. And that the love is in your whole being. It is who you really are. You rest there. You rest in God. Then remembering the words of this lesson. God is the love in which I forgive. And gradually bringing to mind as you repeat that, people you need to forgive. And you can't get it wrong. If you're not sure if you need to forgive someone, just do it anyway. I often go through everybody I know just in case there's any little niggle going on there. forgiveness just clears away the clouds of grievance. And then, if you've finished forgiving everyone you can think of, come to forgiving yourself. And then, God is the love in which I love myself. So I say I'll speak to you for 2 or 3 minutes at the end, before the actual end. So when I speak again, just keep your eyes closed. Now, keeping your eyes closed, let's return to the words of this lesson. God is the love in which I forgive. God is the love, then, in which I forgive myself. God is the love in which I love myself. Feel the fullness of that love in your being, the fullness of the forgiveness woven together, love and forgiveness flowing through you, filling you. So much love and so much forgiveness that we can now extend that out into the world. Feel the light of love within you, your whole being filled with light. So remember that we are the light of the world. Loving and forgiving ourselves, our light shines more brightly. Perhaps it isn't that it shines more brightly, we just can see it better, can inhabit it and extend it. Feel the rays of light radiating out from your being. God's love, God's forgiveness, God's light flowing through us. As our minds are healed, so we reflect into the world the love, the forgiveness, the light. So we are a blessing upon the world. Maybe you can imagine the planet Earth as if we are way above it. God's love, God's light, God's forgiveness surrounding the world. You might be able to imagine all the people of the earth, all these bodies. Though it's an illusion, this love and forgiveness helps us to heal our illusion. Turns into a happy dream, a dream of light uniting us all. Love and light and forgiveness like a benediction, a blessing upon us all. Think of it as like gentle rain, like the soft mist of misty rain, but light falling to the earth until all there is light. Forgiveness is not needed anymore. The fullness of love for others, for ourselves, of God's love. We no longer condemn. We are at peace. We are one.
Open your eyes slowly and back into the room. We have 15 minutes left for sharing your reflections and your questions. If you'd like to speak, raise your hand or use the reactions button at the bottom of the screen, and I'll invite you to take yourself off of mute. And if you'd like to ask Lia a question or a comment with confidentiality, put your message in the chat function at the bottom of the screen, and I'll read it out. Linda.
Yes, thank you, Leah, for that beautiful meditation. I'm still coming down from it. I'm still in it. And when I go to bed at night, I feel I say a loving prayer every night, but I feel God's love cuddling me as though I am a child, and I go to sleep like that. So your meditation was just perfect for me for daytime.
That's lovely.
Yes, just thank you.
You.
I just wanted to thank you.
Thank you very much. And isn't that lovely, the thought of the child, you know, because it's so much on my mind at the moment. You know, I find it really helpful for myself, for everyone, to just remember that we're still a child as well. And our inner child often feels the need of more love and attention and caring and of reminders of their worthiness. And it's hard for us to sit there and say those things to our adult self. But we can actually extend love and appreciation and attention and protection. We can really extend that we need if we think of our child self. It's a wonderful way in. And I can just see you snuggled up in bed with your child. You know, there's some lovely woman I work with. She always goes to bed with a teddy bear since we started doing child stuff. Teddy bear and a hot water bottle. That's lovely. Thank you.
Yes, yes. I'm actually doing an inner child healing course at the moment, so I can relate to it all. So I just wanted to thank you.
Thank you too. Anyone else?
I just wanted to say, Lia, that thank you so much for going through yesterday's lesson. It was, as you said, you know, like yesterday when we went through it, it touched me in a whole new way. It was like I've never seen it before. I loved it, and I really it's about forgiving myself, you know, and I'm projecting stuff onto people, and it's just wonderful to do it again, and new stuff just comes up and up and up, and stuff I didn't even realize needed forgiveness. So thank you.
That's lovely. Yes, I think that's the most wonderful thing about the course, the way things keep being new and we keep adding realization. It's not that we're learning things, I think, so much, is that we're realizing things. It seems to me that what we're being taught starts in our heads as concepts and ideas, and it feels like it drops down gradually. So by the time I worked it was about 50 times, it's beginning to live in my heart. And it becomes part of the ground of my being and informs how I live and how I think. But while it's just thoughts and we've learned the thinking, we can carry on just the same as we did before. We've just got new thoughts in our heads. Do you see what I mean? But somehow or another, it's that willingness to let the thoughts transform into the way we live our lives, becomes part of our everyday living. And I'm always very motivated by seeing how the teachings of the course can be applied to everything that happens in our everyday lives, because it's no point it being a sort of teaching over here and this is how we live over here. Do you see what I mean? It's got to be integrated so that it guides everything that we do and everything that we think and be.
Thank you. Would like to share? Dennis, take yourself off of mute.
Thank you. Like you, I read the course quite a few times, and I've come to the conclusion it's quite a magical book, because there's parts in it that weren't there the last time I read it.
Yes. Yes.
And they just hit me in there, and I think, how come I missed that?
Yes, exactly. Wonderful. Thank you.
There's a comment, there's two comments in chat. One would you be able to share that beautiful prayer in an email afterwards? It was so beautiful.
Yes, I'd love to. It's actually a Marianne Williamson prayer from her book Illuminata, which I bought many years ago. And the subtitle of it is A Return to Prayer. And there's prayers for everything. And they're all delightful, but this particular one I really love. So I can write it out and attach it, or I'll do something anyway. I'll send it to Dan so that you can pass it on to anybody who would like it. And if anybody'd like to be on my mailing list, let Dan know that, because obviously I wouldn't just put you on, even if I had your address. Lots of people are. But if you'd like to be on my mailing list for the things I do, that would be lovely to welcome you to that too. So let Dan know if you want to. Thank you.
Another comment in chat. It says,
sorry, yes.
It says, so beautiful. I have no other words except thank you so much.
That's lovely. Isn't it wonderful though that when we share beautiful things of God, that we are included in the receiving? You know, it's not just I'm sitting there saying all these wonderful things and you lot are getting it. It's not that at all. I'm just a part of the group, part of the vehicle, part of the receiving. It's all rolled together, isn't it? And we have different callings in life, don't we? Somehow or another, I've always been asked to teach, but the greatest blessing of teaching is that a lot of the time I say things that are really worth listening to, because it's coming through and I feel so blessed. So it's not me, it's God.
Okay, who'd like to share? Raise your hand. Sandy.
Thank you, Leah. That was wonderful. I didn't want to speak for quite a while because I was so immersed in it. One of the things that resonated with me when you were talking was about that when we love ourselves, we're loving with God's love, not our smaller love, and how often I've recognised that I've done it through the smaller love, and then wonder why it possibly doesn't filter through in quite the same way. But today, when you mentioned that was just such a beautiful feeling that came with it, that all-encompassing, just that you melt into it, love. And I just want to thank you for reminding me about that. I was coming from the wrong place with that it's God's love is vast. So thank you.
Oh, lovely, Sandy. I'm glad you highlighted that, because yes, my picture is as if we try and love ourselves. It's a sort of circle of kind of weakness, really, because it's our ego. So, as you say, it doesn't get anywhere. So when we say I love myself and so on, in ordinary language, ordinary experience, it isn't going to work, because we're much more likely to be thinking about aspects of our body or our character or personality, and we love bits of ourselves and love our hair or something. This kind of love is just it's just ego. But we're wanting the right thing, aren't we? Well, we just haven't realized. We need to move into experiencing God's love, and then within that, in the holding of God's love, we are being loved. And we say I'm loving myself, but who is I anyway? It's just what we're doing is finding words to help us enter into that experience of total love, and absolutely unconditional. And it's all for all of us. We're all one at that level of spirit. So yes, it's the most wondrous thing. It suddenly becomes vast instead of this little struggle to try and love ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Who'd like to share? Norman, take yourself off mute.
Thank you very much, Leah. It was just when you mentioned the children earlier on, I was on a bus last night and there was a little girl further up the bus. The seats were pointing one way and the other, and my attention was just drawn to her because she had a book, a child's book, reading it, and you could see her lips moving, and when there was quietness in the bus you could sort of hear a very, very quiet voice, and she was obviously engrossed in it, in a wee world of her own. And I found that particularly moving. That was a sort of a very loving moment, if you like. But when I first started this particular session this morning, I had a massive ego attack, and my mind just wouldn't leave me alone. And then eventually I got the thought, I think it comes from the song, "Be still, for the glory of the Lord is shining all around." And I was very quiet, and I had a lovely warm feeling in the tummy, and it was very, very nice. And the funny thing is, just before all this started, you said, well, words to the effect, wouldn't it be nice if we had music that you could listen to while you were talking? And that immediately, I said, why am I thinking of that? And immediately thought perhaps that's where the forgotten song is. It's in the background and we just can't hear it. But big thank you. I'm not sure what you meant to pass over by that, but it made a big effect on me.
Wow.
I'm shaking. I better shut up. Thank you very much.
That's lovely. Yes, the forgotten song is just there in the background, isn't it? We have to be so still and peaceful. It's God's music. Thank you. Thank you very much. Just like to say something about, you said about your mind wouldn't leave you alone. And I was thinking we could perhaps word that slightly differently to be more helpful with what's actually happening. What's happening in those moments is the ego is using your mind, because your mind in itself is like a neutral place. And we either give our minds to God or to the Holy Spirit, or the ego is going to be using it. So as we give our minds more and more over to God, as we heal our minds, so the ego can't use our minds like it used to. So I think what you did was returned your mind to God where it belongs. So you were only thinking the thoughts you think with God. That's a lovely concept, isn't it? That we choose to only think the thoughts we think with God. Beautiful. Thank you, Norman. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Dennis, do you want to come in?
God is the love in which I forgive. It says a lot of things, doesn't it? No separation. I'm a holy child of God. You could list the whole course in that one sentence.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And that reminds me again, thinking about the thoughts we think with God. We can think, well, okay, what does that mean? My way into it is using most of the headings of the lessons. Some things you wouldn't say, well, I thought exactly you think with God, because they're an undoing thing. But, God is the love in which I forgive. That's a thought we think with God, isn't it? I am blessed as a son of God. I am not a body, I am free, I'm still as God created me. All of these wonderful statements are thoughts we think with God. So I have found that if I can be really aware of when I let the ego have a go at my mind and use it to think with, I just have to say, whoa, I just noticed I was thinking with my ego. I don't think I want to go there. I don't fight it. I'm just quite gentle with it. But, you can go now. Forgive you. And now I'm going to choose a new thought. That process, you can't fight you can fight your thoughts, but it mostly doesn't work. If you're thinking a negative thought about yourself and you fight it and you just say a positive thought, you've just got a bit of a battleground and your ego will try harder. But if you notice the thought you're thinking that's from your ego, and you gently, quietly say, I think I'll let that go. I don't need that thought. I forgive that thought. You come to a neutral place, a place of stillness and peace. And in that place, a new thought can come. Either the Holy Spirit will give you a new thought, or it will just feel like it rises within you for all that you really know about God's thoughts. So it's like a little journey, a transformation. And the fundamental place, of course, is awareness. We need to get more and more aware, don't we? So we spot what the ego's doing quickly, so we don't waste too much time going down there. Thank you. I think I saw James with his hand up earlier. Did I, James?
You did indeed, well spotted. Just briefly, I think your presentation was full of love. So thank you for that, from the prayer that you shared with us, and the words that flowed through you. It was just pure love. And so thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Thank you, James. I do feel filled. I do feel filled with love. It is true. And I feel very blessed and grateful to be able to express that to you. Thank you.
Okay, we've come to the end of our time together. Thank you so much, Leah. That was so beautiful. I got so much out of it. And I'm sure all my brothers here did as well. Please take yourself off of mute and show your appreciation to Leah.
Thank you, Leah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Much love.
Thank you. Bye. Bye. Love you.
Bye.